Luke Matias.
Hello.
I'm so excited to have you here today.
It's an absolute pleasure, Angie. It's fantastic. I've been excited as well.
But you know, to be honest, Luke, you get excited about most things. Like, you're very excited. Oh, the beautiful Bex just brought you a green, what is it, Beck? Like a honey, lemon and ginger tea, because you've got a bit of a sore throat.
That's lovely, thank you.
Bit croaky on the voice.
I'm not got a sore throat. I'm just a little bit croaky. I'm worried today's going to, I'm going to sound too much like Barry White, and Phil's going to like get me involved in one of his bands. That's what I'm hoping for, though.
That's
Just a
your
little bit
agenda, isn't it,
husky.
incoming? Not speaking to me, but to be cast in one of Phil's bands.
I feel like I can still get there. It's a late push.
Luke, you can do anything that you set your mind to because you're just that type of human. I'm excited to have you here today. So first thing on this podcast, because
Yes.
it's called The Wind Down, I want to ask you, what is the one thing that you do to wind down after a busy day, busy week? What's that one thing that you go to?
Oh, wow. Okay. Instantly comes to mind. I have my 19-month-old. It was her birthday yesterday, actually, 19-month birthday yesterday.
Do you celebrate every month?
I celebrate every day.
Oh, of course you do. But you really do.
I'm the biggest softie. I used to be this big masculine guy, and now I'm just a softie. That's what I tell everyone anyway.
You're still very big and masculine, Luke. I've got to tell you that.
Every day when I get home from the office, there's a period of time where I say I'm unapologetically unavailable, and that is, everything can wait, right, when you prioritize things. So I will get back from, I'll have a few calls in the car, I'll get back home. It's normally around 5:30, and I will most nights leave my laptop and my phone in the car and just literally just take a bit of time out, and it's just purely Faith time, my daughter Faith, and that's my wind down. That no matter what, that's just absolutely magical time for me, and it's really mindful time with her. I purely concentrate everything on her. It's not a passive piece of time that otherwise I'm lying to myself, I'm lying to Faith. I completely concentrate on her. I'll feed her, I'll bath her every night. That's my favorite part of the day, and that's my wind down without equivocation.
Oh, I love that. I want to talk about fatherhood, and we will later on in the podcast, because I know it's something very important to you, and you've got an amazing story to tell. That accent though, Luke, you're not from around here, are you? Where are you from? I know where you're from, but let's tell the viewers and the listeners that accent. Where have you come from?
I'm from the UK, and my accent changes all the time depending on who I'm speaking to. Nobody wants me. Right now, during the Ashes, I feel as though after 14 years in Australia, I can pick which side I barrack for and which side I give grief to. Mm-hmm. That's what I tell everyone anyway. I'm from Nottingham in the UK. So I came here July 29th, 2005 as the captain of the Great British AFL side. And that someone passed me a football many years ago, and that literally changed my life. I have my beautiful life and wife and kid and everything in Australia because of Australian rules football. So
it was footy that brought you here?
Yeah, I came on a tour. I came for the World Cup in 2005.
Yeah, right.
And ended up staying.
Just loved it that much?
It was just obvious for me, yeah. I did the typical English travelling thing, going up the East Coast and seeing all the sights and trying to learn to surf and all these typical Australian things. And then I came back to Melbourne, had a couple of opportunities, and I sort of fell into it. And then I think I look at people who actually get up and move to the other side of the world, and I'm in awe of them. I love this life out here, but I don't know if I would have been strong enough to move, to literally up sticks, sell a house or move out and come to the other side of the world. I don't know if I would have been strong enough. I lucked across it, to be honest with you. I was already halfway in, and opportunities came, and that became very easy for me. I always think, what would have happened if I didn't come to Australia to play football? I doubt I ever would have made it over here.
Wow.
So it's incredible, those sliding door moments, right?
I was just going to say, those sliding door moments, it's quite incredible. But you've always been, well, as long as I've known you, how long have I known you now? Maybe 4 or 5 years?
Something like that,
Yeah,
yep.
maybe 5 years.
The best 5.
The best 5, absolutely. And like, you've always been as long as I've known you, you're very entrepreneurial. You are the one person that can go after an opportunity like I have never known anyone else able to. Like, you are just that guy. Like, you can turn a chat with a random person on a beach that's kicking the football around, or a random person that you sit next to on a plane, into a very, very meaningful business opportunity. Like, you're very entrepreneurial. Have you always been entrepreneurial? Were you the kid with a lemonade stand when you were like a little toddler?
This is a really funny question. So we both have similar people we follow in the world, and people like Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Talks about his lemonade stand.
I can't even. Do you know what? He's actually, and I can say this because Phil, my husband, here. He is our producer for the whole podcast series. Gary V. He's my. What do I call it? My hall pass.
Your hall pass.
Is that
right?
Unprofessional to admit that? I just think he's great.
You guys.
I think he's awesome.
I do as well.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get him as my hall pass. Maybe I'll ask my wife.
Courtney will let you. She'll let you.
No, Gary Vee's fantastic.
He is.
He's very vocal about points in his life that set his pathway. So that made me think of my pathway.
Yeah.
And when I started business, let's say, and I'm not very good at manual labor. I'm sort of all show and no go. I'm okay in front of the weights, but nothing else. And when I was young, I was probably 7 or 8 was my first business, and it was a car washing business. And it wasn't a business. I was car washing my parents' cars, next door neighbors' cars, blah, blah, blah. I didn't think they were paying me enough for the job I was doing. So whereas it wasn't a business, I remember making my first business decision, and that was then going and washing their cars without them knowing or without them giving me permission. And then I'd knock on the door and say, I've done a great job, haven't I? So can you, do you mind paying me? I live at number 2 or whatever it was, and asking for money after the fact because I thought that was going to make a difference.
Wow. Did it make a difference?
No, not at all.
Did it not?
People just... One of my parents' neighbours said, well, you left all these scratches down the side of the car or something or other. You didn't blast it first. I don't know. I got myself in a bit of bother that day. So then I tried to outsource. I tried to dip in outsourcing. I roped in a couple of my friends. Said, those guys are going to give us £2 to clean the car. I'll give you £1. They were actually giving me 3. And I thought I was onto it. Had people working and cleaning cars for me. And as I was counting those £2 for doing nothing, that didn't work either. So.
How old were you at that stage?
It was about 7 or 8.
Oh gosh!
So
I thought you were going to say like 16 or 17.
No, it was really young.
So
I was really useless,
in you.
And I can't remember if it was my decision or someone passed down the decision. I just remember having that discussion with my friends, trying to get them to do something for me.
Wow. Who did you have around you at the time? Did you have like business people in your life? Like was it was there people in your family that were very entrepreneurial for you to even think that way as a 7 or 8 year old?
My dad was a business owner, yes. So he was in finance and insurance for as long as I can remember. And he had his own business as I was growing up. So I think I learned a lot subconsciously around that, just how days were broken up, how people would come and go into the house. I remember them having a big office, and then it was a home office, and then it was a big office again. And I never really paid too much attention to it, or at least I didn't think I paid too much attention to it.
Yeah.
And then you look back at these, at some stage in life when you become a little bit more introspective, and you look back at the important moments or the moments that might have had an influence on you. They're moments that did have an influence, and I just wasn't aware of at the time.
Yeah, because it was probably felt like your norm, because I can relate to that too, because my dad always had a business, and it was like a home office, then it grew, and then it was back to a home office, and then it grew again. And I think as a kid, like I used, as a hobby, I would do business plans from a 7 or 8 year old, and so I think it definitely rubs off. It feels like the normal.
Well, it's the same with all influences, right? This whole thing about you are the 5 people who you hang around with the most, you become them. Whatever it is, 5 people, 10 people, whatever the actual information is, that's real. If you're hanging around with people who have got certain goals or aspirations, then it rubs off on you.
Yeah.
And if you hang around on people who do things, it rubs off on you. If they don't do things, whatever it is, and that's your prerogative, that's your choice, whether you want to hang around with those people or whether you want to change.
Yeah.
Gear up, so to speak. And as difficult as it sounds, it's true.
It is true. You are the best of the 5 people that you have around, for sure. And do you, like, because you're incredible at connecting with people, you really are. Like I have noticed you in business meetings, or we go to a networking group every Friday morning together, and the relationships that you just have with people, like you are the most positive person that I've ever met. Like you truly are just that positive human in my life. But everyone that is around you can't help but smile when you're around you. For people that find it difficult to network or connect with people, like, do you have any advice of how to kind of forge those not only just relationships, but true meaningful relationships. Like what do you do?
Start.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid and just start. I now, a quote that I heard that really resonated with me was actually Jamie Foxx, who I find fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of film, he's got a cracking YouTube comedic channel where he interviews people. Anyway, I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he says, "What's on the other side of fear?" And I didn't know what he meant by it at the start, but then, so take this. In Collins Street, right now in Melbourne, on a Saturday afternoon, if you walk down the street, lay on the floor and started screaming like a baby, why wouldn't you do that? Because you're afraid, right? You're afraid of what people would think. You're afraid of all these different things. What would happen? Oh my gosh, I look like a bonehead, right?
Yeah.
But what happens then? You stand up and you walk off and you're on your merry way, and nobody else gives it a second thought. When you consider things like that, what's on the other side of fear? He said, nothing. So why are we so afraid of saying hello or starting a conversation? Or, I'm completely against selling. I'm pro relationships. If there's a good relationship there, there's potentially business there. Yes, great, but it all comes from good relationships. I don't like doing business with people who I can't chat to.
Yeah.
There's enough business that I can do with good people who I can chat to. Then that's where I want to sort of sit. And how do you know unless you say hello? There's nothing on the other side of fear. So just go and do it. That's what I've sort of always lived by.
Yeah, I love it. So you've had this entrepreneurial mindset from a young age. You came to Australia with your footy team, and you're very competitive as well. Like, you love sport. You love sport, and you're very fit and very healthy. We'll talk about that soon. But when did you take that leap of faith to start your own business, the Matias Group? When did that all kick off?
Okay, so there wasn't a specific date. So through doors opening when I got back to Melbourne, I gathered a personal training job because it was easy and I got to spend a lot of time in the gym while I was playing football. Then I realized it just wasn't for me. Personal training just wasn't for me because people weren't accountable as much as I was accountable, and I couldn't motivate them at the time to be that level. I wanted the best for them. I wanted them to do all these specific things and wonderful, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And then I'd get really affected. So it was really breaking down my mindset. I then had an opportunity with a finance company who employed me at the time, but not really employed me. It was more a case of, visa issues and all this sort of area. And they were fantastic. Loved them. They sponsored me, very much a mentorship role. And it all went really well. As soon as my sponsorship was through, business had changed and I was gaining my own relationships and opportunities were opening up. And I worked under their banner, my business under their banner for a number of years, in a pure partnership role. So I don't really have a day when I became an entrepreneur and I went out and approached a job or went from a job into an entrepreneurial business.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever really been employable. I just don't enjoy it.
I would be the worst employee as well. The worst.
I would never employ you.
No, I don't think I'd employ you, but I'd want to work with you. But yeah, no, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Once you've done your own thing and it kind of, you have employees, it's because I always say, and you say this a lot too, like I don't really believe in that, work-life balance. It's just all life. It's just all under the one banner. So we get to choose our own destiny and choose how our day plans out. If I'm more creative at 4 a.m, I can work at 4 a.m. if I want to. That's the joy of it. But I want to, that's really interesting. So, but how many years have you been in business?
So 2008, or late 2007, I started my own sole trader.
Okay.
Number or ABN
so over
number.
10 years.
Over 10 years.
Over a decade.
And then the business was established in 2010.
Yeah.
So that's 9 years ago, the actual proprietary limited business. And then the Matias Group was founded later on for reasons of telling stories. In that period, it's funny, in that period, I went from being a finance company or being a finance person to being a people person, or I realized I was going that way.
Yeah, because you're not the typical finance guy. Like, you are not the typical finance guy.
No, I'm not.
And that's a compliment. Like, because you're very honest, you're very transparent, but you're just this connector. Like, you work in finance, yet we work with each other on lots of different projects over the years and has nothing really to do with finance, but you know a lot of people. You're a professional connector at the same time of being a
Professional connector.
Yeah.
I need that on my business card.
Do you
I
like
reckon.
that? You can
I don't
have
mind
that. You can have that.
Well, finance is something that everybody can use.
Yeah.
So I don't enjoy going out and selling. I don't enjoy transactional stuff, 5.1 versus 5.2. I'm just not that person. I don't want to advertise best rates in town on the internet and SEO and things like that. I'm purely relationship driven, and I know I do a good job. I know my team do a good job. And if people want to use us, then fantastic. Good, like genuinely good on them, because we're doing something right for them. And then we will try and do more right for them once they're in our network, rather than trying to win their business by smoke and mirrors. There's so much of it in finance. So once I realized that I don't want just to sell, I'm not up against these other finance, I don't have any competitors. I decided to build my network, and that was what I enjoy doing. So I've got all these other entities around the outside of my finance offering, and that was why I had to use the Matias group, because it was personal enough yet semi-corporate enough that the team can discuss it or use it in conversation. But it brought my whole story together. I was telling one story as opposed to I'm in fashion, I'm in finance, I'm in fitness, and all these different things.
Yeah.
It was just this one entity. We've got a great group of people doing great things to great people.
And how can we all help each other
Exactly
and
right.
connect the dots?
And the more dots I connect and the more value I add without asking for anything, guess what? The finance company just looks after itself.
Yeah.
When I'm on the ball and I'm introducing you to others and I'm bringing business to various other people and just putting the dots together, at some stage people are going to finance. It's just a great merry-go-round.
Yeah, you do things with such good intent, and you join the dots consistently all the time. You know, I'll be sitting at my desk working away, and there'll be a phone call from you, and you're like, "Ange, I've got someone that I just want you to meet." You know, that's what you do. You know, it is about relationships, and I think a lot of the reason as to why people are naturally drawn to you, I'll go back to that positivity subject, because you really are, and I want to dig into this a little bit deeper, because you are very, very positive. You're a very uplifting person to be around. Is that something that you have to work on a lot? Does it come naturally to you? Like, can people learn how to have a more positive mindset?
Yes, without equivocation. And I describe it as digestion. And if I say digestion, everyone thinks about the eating and things like that.
Yeah.
Digestion is the use of an external. Now, that could be, if you always eat chicken, veg and rice, you're going to have a good digestion. Your body's going to be reacting really well. It's exactly what your body needs. There's no MSG or there's no sugars or anything like that. So your body's going to be reacting well. What happens when you mentally digest properly? When you are surrounding yourself with people like you, people who you learn from, people who build you, people who you just get inspiration from.
Yeah.
You hear all the time that, oh, Facebook's rubbish or Instagram's rubbish or whatever it might be. Everyone's moaning on Instagram. It's because you're digesting the wrong sort of information. If you're clicking and reading these negative stories, or if you're watching various shows every night and it's all negative, you're digesting the negative information, and you're on a thunderous downhill pathway. If you just spin this around and digest uplifting information, podcasts about learning, podcasts about growing, podcasts about, okay, well, I don't know how to digest the right food. Well, learn about it. You know, listen to Gut by Julia Enders. Everyone can learn how to have a better gut health. Everyone can learn how to, I don't know, socially market or build a table, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Rather than spending your time out of choice watching bad news that you can't affect anyway.
Yeah.
That is just a scare tactic to keep you watching. It's that addictive show reel.
Yeah.
I'm completely off that. I don't watch TV. I don't watch any of these things. I consume information on my terms when I want. I don't like being advertised to. It's all these various methods of bulletproofing my life with certain things. And once I've lived from them and I've grown from them, then we'll, I don't know, scale up again and go again and just keep
Yes, I love that so much. So you're very mindful of what you're digesting and taking
Have to be.
It's so interesting that you say that, because Phil and I talk about this a lot. Have you ever noticed, like Sunday, and because I own a PR and communications agency, it is important for me to keep up with the news cycle.
Of course.
You know, so it's hard. Sometimes I'm like, I'm just getting like overexposure of just negative bad. Like there's a bomb gone off. There's terrorist attack happening on this side of the world. There's a drug problem. There's gangs over here. There's been a murder. I'm like, it's all just miserable, and then you watch news on a Sunday night and it's just like murder case study, and then they'll have something else on a Sunday night that's just misery. So you've lived, a nice Friday night, Saturday super relaxing, Sunday we've been chilling at the farm with our beautiful horses, and then you watch TV and then you feel a little bit shitty with yourself.
Bang.
And so we're just kind of have come up with this new way of, we don't watch TV on a Sunday night, or, we work out with the team because about how to kind of monitor the media so I'm not overexposed to it the whole time, because it was driving me completely mad. So you're absolutely right. So being mindful about what you're consuming, the people you're hanging around. Anything else? Like, do you journal?
Well, just on that, before we go into journaling, there is a lot of bad news out there. There is, and I am understanding of that.
Yeah.
I can't affect it in any way, but I get judged on shutting all that sort of stuff out. But there's also so many people out there doing good, like miraculous things for miraculous people and saving lives, and that doesn't get the same airtime as the people doing bad.
Because they can't sell stuff off the back of that.
Because they can't sell stuff off the good news. And that's what irks me.
I know.
I will go and hunt down good news or find positivity somewhere, as opposed to always surrounding with bad news. I mean, this morning, you can't help it sometimes. Bushfires and things like that. I feel for them personally. Unbelievable. You can't, there's no words for it. But how much can you let things affect you? There's so much good news, so much bad news. If you just follow that roller coaster, and it affects you personally, unless you're willing to do something about it, which I don't have the ability to. Yeah.
Just can't do it to yourself. I focus on what you can influence, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell me about your journaling, because you inspired me to actually start journaling. And I think a lot of listeners will be able to get a lot out of this. How do you journal, and how did it change the way that you think?
Okay, so about 5 or so years ago, I was going through a big personal development period. This is before I launched the Matias Group. This is as all these ideas were going through. What am I, and why do I do it?
Yep.
A big thing was my why in life. Now, at the time, I changed my digestion. I was listening to people like Tim Ferriss, the Tim Ferriss show, way back in the early days. The first dozen or so, and some of the guests he had on it. I was so interested in leaders of influence and leaders of industry, what their daily routine was like. And that was what Tim Ferriss was giving us free. I couldn't believe it. There's all these courses that you go out and pay for. Tim Ferriss was doing it every week. He was bringing in a new superstar. And it could be Arnold Schwarzenegger, it could be Elon Musk, it could be, an athlete, it could be a tech superstar who I've never heard of. All this crazy stuff. And telling us what they do on a daily basis. And I kept hearing this thing called journaling. And I always thought, journaling, schmurdling.
Journaling, schmurdling.
I never considered it. I never considered it. And then I decided to invest in myself on a few different levels for a whole month. And I thought journaling is going to be one of them. Okay, so there was a lot of different journaling methods taken up. And I started doing every day. I've got a nice little journal book. And I write down 1, 2, 3, 5 times. So down the side of the page. So there's 15 points. Date at the top of the page. The first 3 things, so the first 1, 2, 3 are 3 things I'm grateful for. Second 3 things are 3 things that will make today magnificent. Third 3 things were my daily affirmations. And then in the evening, before I might do a bit more work or whatever, before I go to my proper relaxed state, I'll go back downstairs and journal again. And the last 6 points in the book are 3 things that made today magnificent, and then 3 things that I can learn from. Yeah. This changed everything. I remember about 2 weeks into it, I missed a morning, or I missed an evening. I can't remember what it was. And I thought, I haven't journaled. I wanted to. Yeah.
Became part of your routine and your habit.
So quickly.
And it's such a beautiful thing, because when I started, I was the same. I was like, journaling. Another thing I have to do is if I'm not busy enough, a little bit kind of pessimistic about it. But the moment I started, it probably took me 2 to 3 weeks to really get into it and understand, because like the first first week or two, I was like, I'm grateful for Phil, my husband. He's wonderful. I'm grateful for my dog and our house. It was all very kind of like, top line.
Yes, yeah.
But then something clicked, and I reckon it was probably 2 weeks in. And then all of a sudden, I was really grateful and appreciative and probably much more mindful of all the tiny little things that were happening throughout the day that I would have missed. Like, I would smile at a stranger on the street and they would smile back at me. And I was like, how good was that? I would have missed that, prior to journaling, because I was actively and proactively looking for those great moments in the day, and I was focusing on the good. And it just shifted my mindset from that kind of, not that I've always been fairly positive, but it just, I don't know, something clicked in me and changed. And then all those little moments in the day meant so much more to me. And I would, race home and be excited to light my candle, have a green tea and write in my journal that evening.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, it was the same kind of thing.
That little feeling in your stomach when they smile back at you and you just sort of brighten their day.
I'm like, I'm going to write that in my journal tonight. There we go.
Imagine what they wrote in their journal, whether it be metaphorically or physically.
Yeah,
imagine
nice.
that. Angela Ceberano walked past me and she said hello.
I'm sure they weren't thinking that.
Do you know what I mean, though? They might have done. And
That's
you never
a nice
know.
concept.
You never know where it's going to go. You never know what effect that smile will have on somebody else. There's no infinite point of what a bit of happiness, a bit of positivity to that person will bring.
It's so true. See, there you go again on your positivity thing. You just think that way, don't you? Like, you are constantly positive. Do you? Well, let me ask you a question on this. Because I think we can relate. We've spoken about this before. Do you feel the constant pressure of kind of being known as Mr. Positive? Like, do you feel the pressure to always be up? Because I think of Phil sometimes, I keep referring to Phil, you can jump in any time if you like, it's a very casual podcast. Phil's very positive and up all the time. But the moment Phil has a down day, it's like my whole world has fallen apart. Like, I can get in shitty moods or whatever, but when Phil gets in a shitty mood, I'm like, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? Have I done something wrong? Do you want to get separated? Like, it's the end of the world. And I think, gosh, that must be hard for him, because I have put him on such a big, tall pedestal of him being always up and always positive and always the fun guy to be around. He is Mr. Fun. You're Mr. Positivity. Do you feel the pressure?
I'm not fun, though.
You're pretty fun. You're fun.
Do I feel the pressure?
Do you?
Really, really interesting. Like Phil would feel the pressure there. I'm sure you feel the pressure to keep Phil up, though. Just like any good partnership, whether it be in business or personally.
Yeah. Well,
you can't just always rely on Phil and Phil's the reason you're up. You're also the reason Phil would be up so much.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, it's a tag team, definitely. But do you feel the pressure? Answer the question, Luke. Do you feel the pressure?
Of course.
You do?
Of course I do, because that's real. I am genuinely, humblingly grateful for so much, and I do enjoy bringing that attitude to others because it opens their eyes, and I love that.
Yeah.
But it is difficult. I'm up 4:30 every day, and until I go to bed, I literally don't have a second to spare. It's just purely constant every single day, and that consistency is fantastic. But it also comes at a bit of a cost, a price.
Yeah.
And I used to just think, I'll just build through, I'll just push through, I'm fine, I'm tough, I'm fine. And looking back, you do go through massive troughs, peaks and troughs. So what I've had to do is try and step back and work out, okay, well, when am I going into a trough? When am I going into a peak? Not take too much consideration of the peak, but what am I doing if I'm going into a trough? I'm feeling, I can't be bothered waking up this morning, or heaven forbid I get annoyed or short around Faith or some of my team or anything like that. There's obviously something wrong. It's not that someone in my life has done anything bad. There's something always going on inside me, and that's what I've learnt as much as possible around, and I'll continue learning as much as possible about, because that saves the day. If you can tell when you're going down and you're aware of it, and you can journal about it, and you can just consider it and just shut everything off for a period of time, whatever that might be. I go to the gym often. I'll just literally just stand up and go to the gym, or I'll go and sit in my car out the back of the office and just breathe. I don't have my phone on me or anything like that. People think I'm going nuts, but I just sit in there and I go through a breathing exercise, and then I come back in and I'm okay. Identifying not just the macro levels when you're going down and when you're struggling, it's the or when you're feeling the pressure. It's the micro ones, when I'm feeling the pressure of 17 deals and people talking to me about every one of them, and then I don't know, or just the chaos of business life.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just go and I'll go and just do my breathing exercise, and I'll come back and I'll smash out 1 through 17, on the go, and then I'll deserve a walk around the block or something like that. Just being mindful rather than just having my head in the sand and digging for dear life.
Yeah.
Just being aware and sitting back and working through it one by one.
Yeah, it's that self-awareness piece, isn't it? That's so crucial.
It's got to, because no one wants an Ange to walk into a meeting with a big glum face because you've had a rubbish day and you're moaning about the weather. You could just be anybody in the street. That's not you. That's not why you got a seat at the table. That's not why they invited you in.
That's so true. It's so true. I relate a lot to that because, I work in PR and Phil and I call it my character that I put on, Poly PR. If I'm going into a meeting, I'm definitely going to be positive and up. It doesn't matter what I've dealt with that morning or what I've dealt with personally. I will consistently always turn up with a smile on my face, and I'm happy to be here, because I am happy to have the job, absolutely. But sometimes that mask kind of has to come off. And it's usually when you're at home or with your trusted circle of friends. Like I've called you many times going, Luke, I'm having a rubbish day and I just need your good vibes to help bring me up. And it's so much about the people that you have around you. And there's only probably 5 people that I would call and do that with or feel comfortable enough around to be able to do that. But it is important, don't you think, to be able to have those people around you that you can be like, you know what, I'm going to be real and I'm just going to ring you and have a chat. Because it's not always amazing. Most of the time it is, but not always.
That's a real pressure, this whole Instagram life.
Yeah.
And we're both a big part of social media and Instagram and that whole thing, and it's all good news. I love that you're real on this. I love that you post real stories about it's not all driving down Beach Road in a convertible with the wind going through your hair.
Yeah. I wish it
this-
was 24/7. Actually, no, I don't wish it was, because I want to ask you about this as well. Because as a business owner, entrepreneur, yes, we have big goals. We always have big goals. We've got a vision board. Mine's over there. I've seen your vision board. And we have big goals. But for you, is it about the goal, or do you just love the process of building something?
If you don't love the process, what are we in it for?
Right.
I use the fat loss pill all the time. I speak about this.
Oh, what's this?
Or the lottery win. If I was massive, right, and I was just trotting along and I took a fat loss pill and the next day I was ripped, what's going to happen in a year or 2 years? I'm not going to change my mindset enough. I'm not going to educate enough on how to eat and how to train. So I'm going to slowly get out of shape again because there's no value in the fat loss pill. Just like you see so many NBA athletes or superstars go bankrupt, like they're not taught the business strategy. They're just given all this money and they go and buy lions and tigers and $10 million cars, and they have no comparison of what's real. And then as soon as the checks stop, as soon as the lottery win has run out, and you can spend $20 million if you're not educated quite comfortably. Everyone says, oh yes, it will last forever. It's probably not going to be if you don't know the process. That's where the gold is. If you go and make your $20 million, $100 million, whatever it is, or if you go and go from out of shape and get extremely into shape, that journey is the gold. It's not just about on show day or the day where you have the $20 million in your account, even though that would be a lovely day, I'm sure.
I look forward to that day.
Same here. Give each other a high five.
Yes. But it's the process and
You've
the
got
journey.
to enjoy it. You've got to enjoy it.
Yeah, because I love building and making stuff, and I love when someone says no. You must love it when people say no. Oh,
absolutely. Because why?
Yeah.
Because it's my product. I went through a long time in trying to dictate the market and trying to tell people this is a great product. You will have it, and it's A, B, C. Yeah. And it didn't work. Got my chest. Why? This is personal on me. No, the market's over there, and I'm trying to make it go over here. And the faster you can get your mind into, if it's a good product, the market will take it. That's just vital time back that you've not spent wasted somewhere else. So when people say no, it's a case of, okay, well, what do they want? Like, why? If I lose a deal, it's no issue for me to call somebody and say, why did you go with somebody else? They made it easier on this regard. Okay, perfect. Because then the next 1,000 customers I have are all going to be easier in that regard.
Yes. And it seems so simple, but I don't feel like a lot of people, in business do it. It's just about listening, right?
Pride gets in the way.
It's pride. You're absolutely right. It's pride, isn't it?
And it's so obvious. It's so easy to get in the way. And it has got in the way of me many times. And now, again, just being aware, taking a step back, saying, Luke, just call them and take it on the chin and smile and just learn from this.
Yeah.
Because it might be $100 deal now, and you've learned something. Okay, well, put in place, so you're not going to lose the $1,000 deal. If it's a $1,000 deal, you're not going to lose a $10,000 deal.
Yeah.
As long as you put those things in place and you tick the boxes rather than making the same mistake every time.
Yeah.
Then we learn, and it's so much more important than that particular deal alone. Bulletproofing yourself against the same issues down the track as your business grows and as it becomes a much bigger entity, money on the plate sort of thing.
And that's how you scale, right? Is by, failing and learning and creating a process and a system so it doesn't happen
Absolutely.
again. And then the sky's your limit. You just keep learning and tweaking away at it the whole time.
The sky is the limit. Whether it's the actual business's limit or whether it's you personally, you can just always keep learning.
Yeah, it's true. I love that. You know what else I love? I love that you're a dad.
Oh.
I love that you're
Not
a dad.
as much as I love it. Oh,
because your smile, we're getting a nice little close-up of Luke's face whenever we talk about his gorgeous daughter, Faith. You just have this big beaming smile. And for people that don't know, Luke has a podcast called Mind, Body, Matias. Is that right? Did I get around the right way?
That's right.
Yeah. And it is a wonderful podcast. Actually inspired me to create a podcast too. So thank you.
Thank you.
And one episode that you did on your podcast, I loved so much. And it really hit home for Phil and I. And you did a whole episode on your pregnancy journey and your wife's pregnancy journey. But what I loved, it was your perspective, a male perspective, which we rarely hear about that. It's usually always about the woman and her body and what she's going through and her emotions. But it was such a beautiful episode. I remember I was driving home and it was about 4 days after Phil and I miscarried, and that was a really, really dark time for us. But I turned on your podcast and it was just, the episode was absolutely gold. I mean, I was driving home bawling my eyes out whilst I was listening to you. But the one wonderful thing that it did for me was that it made me feel less alone. And I so thank you for sharing your journey. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind touching a little bit on your journey of what you and your beautiful wife, Courtney, have gone through to get to your gorgeous daughter, Faith. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Always talk about it. It's something I'm so open about, Ange, because again, it's this whole real thing. It's not an Instagram life where everything just comes so freely and easily. Our journey for Faith was 4.5 years long. It was many rounds of IVF. We had countless miscarriages, an ectopic pregnancy that put Courtney really at risk. One day we literally went in for a checkup we were pregnant. We went in for a checkup. 2 hours later, Courtney is in emergency surgery fighting for her life. God. We went through some horrendous times, but it was real. It's not like we did anything wrong for that. It was just a case of this is us. We can't affect this. We were doing all the things. We were eating all natural foods and cleaning with vinegar as opposed to all these different everything. Our whole household, our whole lives was just so natural and clean, and we still weren't giving the right answers. And funnily enough, we were hearing a lot of people who are close to us, who we would have described as friends, not knowing our journey. They would speak about us behind our back, saying how selfish they are because they've got cars and houses and businesses and blah, 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 whatever all this nonsense is. They're too selfish to have kids. And we're like, we would swap every single thing in an instant for one child or one go. It was just that thing that we couldn't affect. And we tried and tried and tried. It was just the most humbling time. So remember, we had a chat, and we both got business, and we always have. We were discussing it. You can go to business courses and team building exercises and leadership this and whatever else by the top people in the world. And we came to realize we were in the middle of our biggest battle we will ever face. If we go on to sell our business for $1 billion and we cash out and it's just all magnificent, that wouldn't be as joyous as the day we fell pregnant or the day we actually had Faith. So we were in the middle of our biggest battle that we could ever imagine. And just knowing that was really nice at the time. So like with everything, the more difficulty, the more topics around difficulty that you discuss openly, I feel as though I can help somebody out there. And that's why I did the podcast, because so many people, as soon as we discuss pregnancy and discuss IVF and discuss miscarriages, you always see a glint in somebody's eye or a question in somebody's eye. The question is, why is this guy talking about pregnancy and IVF to me? But the glint at the same time is their cousin's going through it, or their boss, or their sister, or who. So many people we spoke about, and then I got to the point where I could tell, okay, well, there's something in there that you're hiding. So I would go in and ask people about it, and they might be having difficulties falling pregnant, and they thought it was something wrong with them, just like we thought at the start it was something wrong with us, and it's not. It's just life, and you know, some things come easy to people, and some things take time, and it happens when it happens, and we thank Faith every day for choosing us as opposed to being the other way around. But it's not something that anyone's done wrong. It's, you know, I might be the most fertile guy and I might be dating the most fertile girl, but together it's genes and whatever it is just doesn't match until a certain date when the stars are aligned and you're blessed with a beautiful little angel. And that's what we were. And you know, funnily enough, since the pregnancy podcast aired, Courtney and I traveled, and haven't actually said this publicly. We were in Europe this year a couple of months ago, and the day before we went, Courtney found out that she was pregnant, and I was in our morning networking meeting. I was sat in the reception afterwards, and Courtney was at home, and she felt like a toastie, a cheese and ham toastie. And then she thought, hang on a minute, I'm going to do a pregnancy test. We've done like a million pregnancy. Every time you turn around, the wind changes, we've done pregnancy tests. And she found out she was pregnant, and she went to the straight to our specialist and got all the drugs and whatever it was for the whole trip we were away. And there we are, traveling across with another suitcase now with all these steroids and potions and lotions and everything like that. Unfortunately, we had the first 2 weeks were fantastic. Courtney was just nuts.
Cloud nine.
Yes. And she was, and then unfortunately we had a miscarriage while we were overseas, which was probably our toughest yet, because we weren't at home. Court couldn't give a mum a hug or anything like that. And then you think, okay, well, we've got little Faithy, it's okay, but it still hurts like hell. Of
course.
Still, and it was just a killer.
Gut wrenching.
It is.
Because, you know, you see those little 2 lines come up on the pregnancy test, and it's your whole world changes just like that, you know. And it's the one thing that we can't control. And I think for me, being able to control most things in my life and self-control freak,
absolutely.
It's the one thing that, and Phil is he's wonderful for me because he's very calm and very grounded, and he's like, oh, well, don't worry, you know, there's next month. There's always next month, you know, and you can keep trying, and he's got a lot of hope. And but it's the one thing that we just can't control, and it makes life sometimes a little challenging.
It's humbling though, isn't it?
It is humbling.
You go back to the conversation we had previously about the journey, rather than just the goal, the business goal.
Yes.
It's the same. It's just that journey. It's not just wait until you have a kid. It's you know now what you're going through, what we went through, what we're going through right now, and so many others are going through. It's nothing to be ashamed of, and the more we speak about it, and the less we have pressure raining down on us from peers and society, and when are you going to have the whole thing about, so when are you going to have another one? Jesus Christ,
it never stops. When are you going to get engaged? When are you going to get married? When are you going to buy a house? When are you going to have a kids? When are you going to have another one? It never stops, you know?
I try and be vocal as I can about that. When people say something, I don't care if that's the society norm, just have a think what could be going on behind closed doors.
100%. You just don't know what someone's going through. That's why you just have to be kind and gracious to everyone, you know, when you meet them, because you just don't know what journey they're on. But how sweet it must have been when you were able to hold Faith for the first time, knowing that journey that you had been on. How has fatherhood changed you? It must have changed you in so many ways.
It's just magic. I've built my life around spending a lot of time around her. I see Faith morning and night. I used to be up and out very early, and I've got a pretty well-spec'd home office, and so I wake up in the morning super early. I spend half an hour on myself, all my personal stuff, bit of yoga, a cold shower, or my morning routine, and then I do 2 hours work at home normally until Faith wakes up. As soon as Faith wakes up, I'm just like, oh my God, I'm up, I'm going to go and pick her up and grab her and love her, and I spend 45 minutes to an hour with her, just undivided attention in the morning, and then I'll go and train. I'll go to the gym, and then I'm on my way to the office. But I've already done a couple of hours of really ground out stuff.
Thinking.
They're my power hours, I call them.
Yeah.
And then I get back from the office at a similar time every day to spend time with her, because that's the life I've built. I'll get back onto work. It always all gets done, but there's certain periods of the day where I dedicate purely to Faith as a minimum, because I'm just determined that Faith will know me and know me really well throughout her whole life, not have that missing father. It's just not me. So for some people that works, and good, fair play to them, but I have to be around her.
I love that. And maybe that's because of the journey that you went on
Maybe,
too, that
absolutely.
you appreciate it so much. And,
Yep.
It's so beautiful to see. It's a wonderful thing. Becoming a dad, has it changed the way that you define success? Because I think for me, over this little journey of trying to become pregnant over the last year, I'd say, like, really trying, the way I define success has certainly changed. I used to be more financial and more ambitious, and now I just define success is by how happy I am. How do you define success?
There's a few different variables for me when I'm being successful. I don't say this is success. I sort of, when I'm acting successfully, I know I'm on the right path, and that is I divide my life into 3 areas: the personal, the family, the business side. And personally, success is when I'm eating well, when I'm training really hard, when I'm getting that joy out of life, and that happens every day. And that for me is I'm living successfully, because when I'm fit and I'm active and I'm outlasting everyone around me, because I'm digesting the right foods and I'm giving myself the right energy balances, and I'm just fit enough to outlast people around me in personal and business and the whole lot.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Mm-hmm.
Have you always been that fit guy eating well, or did that come later on?
No, not at all.
Really?
I went through an obese stage.
See, I wanted to ask you that question because I've heard rumours about that, but I haven't heard it from you.
Yeah,
Really?
I was very large. I went to university and everything was good. I was a sports person before, missed the boat, and went to university and just got just lazy and lethargic, and drank lots of beer and ate lots of kebabs, and never really. I remember thinking that I'm a big guy. I was still train a little bit, but
Yeah.
I was just massive. I was just enormous.
Wow.
I had a 42 to 44 inch waist. I was 122 kilos at 6 foot, which is pretty significant. I'm 90 kilos now, and this is sort of where I've floated around for many years now. But I was genuinely obese. I didn't
Wow.
want to admit it, but I was. Looking
I wouldn't
back,
even recognise that, Luke.
I wouldn't recognise that Luke either.
No.
It was a dark phase, obviously, mentally for me in my life. And
What made you change? Like, what was the thing that was like, right, that's it?
my girlfriend dumped me. So
Really?
great girlfriend.
She
And
broke your heart.
Broke my heart. And I remember I went up for a shower. I was at university in Manchester, and I came back down and looked myself in the mirror and thought, I'm never going to get another girl like her. And looked in the mirror at myself with a towel. Never going to get another girl like her. And those sliding door moments, that
Wow.
awareness of your own moments.
She changed your life. We thank her.
Definitely
Yeah.
it did. It woke me back up. And then just started slowly educating yourself. Well, don't know what nutrition is, but I know that kebab and beer is probably not the best thing for me. So
Wow.
just slowly went the other way.
That's amazing. See, I'm learning so much about you today. I wouldn't, because you're the fittest, healthiest person that I know. Also the most positive person that I know. Okay, so you've got, sorry, I cut you off. So that's your personal, when you're define success and being
Yes.
happy. And then you've got, what are the other pillars?
Yeah, when I'm being successful personally, it makes me act more successfully in a family arena, and that's time with Faith, mental, mindful, focused time with Faith, and the same with Court. I know when I'm, we're both in business, we're business partners in some cases. It's always business, it's always stress, it's always this, and it's genuinely tough to balance life in terms of talking about non-business and life with business, and trying to erase all that, and then you've got bills and all the rest of it. You know exactly what I'm talking about here. That's difficult. But when I'm fit personally and I'm acting really professionally and successfully personally, I have more patience, I have more knowledge, I have more energy I can put into that to ensure that becomes a success.
Yeah.
And then when that is moving nicely, then okay, well, if we're going out on date nights and we're doing this thing and we're smiling and we're laughing and we're high-fiving, guess what? The business all of a sudden is already at a certain level, because I come in and I'm bouncing, I'm full of energy and life and lust, and it's just awesome. And then it's the same thing with business. If everything's acting successfully, people are smiling around me, people are doing deals, and there's that vibe in the air. So I don't see successful as a destination. I used to put a monetary value on it, drive a certain car by the time I'm 30 or something like that. All this absolute nonsense.
We grow out of that, right?
Well, hopefully, yeah. But now it's just a process.
I love that. Sort of like a domino effect. So if you have like your personal stuff is like in order and set up, everything else just kind of rolls on from that.
Not rolls on, but it gives me the best chance of being the best father.
Yeah.
Sets
you up well.
Correct. Because at 5-6 o'clock when I get home in the evening, and I'm just exhausted because I'm not fed properly, I'm not eaten properly, and I just want to lie down on the couch. Faith doesn't know I just want to lie down on the couch and that I'm tired. I can't let that happen. I have to feed myself properly. So when I get back, I'm just still firing, and I just want to grab her and swing her around. So it all comes back to that personal thing for me. Well, that's how I sort of break down my life, because without it, the rest becomes difficult. I can't have that.
Oh, I love that, Luke. It's amazing. I'm learning so much. I've got one last question for you.
Absolutely.
It's a big one. You might have to think about it.
Whoa.
Someone asked me this the other day.
Yes.
And I was like, I had to think about it. What do you want to be remembered for?
Helping.
You didn't even need to think about that. You just said it. Helping.
Yeah, that will be my legacy. I want to help as many people do as many great things, whether it be, again, personally, family or business. Whether there's money in it or a monetary transaction, I don't care. If I can help as many people as possible, what else do I need to do?
That's a beautiful trait. I love it. I'm sure you've helped me. You helped so many in our network. You help all the people around us and further on. And I'm sure you've helped many people today just from listening to your wisdom on the podcast. I thank you so much for sharing and being so raw and real and honest. It's been wonderful. I could continue to chat with you forever. So thank you, Luke, for popping in today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, what a great chat. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. I've had so much fun.
Did you have fun?
Lots.
Yes. Thanks, Luke.